There we go. All right. You can hear me and you can see me okay, right?
I can.
Great. Okay. So this is the what we call the Author Shout Out podcast. It's part of the International Writers Inspiring Change platform, kind of a new edition. Well, we've been interviewing authors for the last 6-8 weeks now. So you're next on our guest list.
Wonderful.
And we're speaking with Diane. Correct me if I say your last name incorrectly, but it's Diane Merrill Wigginton, right?
Correct. Yes.
You say it like that. Okay.
Just like that.
Great. And are we talking to you from Missoula, Montana?
No, it's actually Kalispell, Montana. I'm closer to Glacier National Park.
Okay. Any close relationship to the Yellowstone, the famous Yellowstone location? You know, the series.
Yes. So that's actually filmed in Helena, down there in that area, and that's about 6 hours away.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm up at the top and they're down at the bottom.
All right. You're up closer to the Canadian border up there then.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, well, great. So well, we're going to go for about 25 minutes roughly on this podcast. And so I have some questions, but I'll probably end up segueing depending on how the conversation goes. There's no real, tight format or regimen to this.
All righty.
And when we're done, we will post the podcast as is, and it'll go up on our podcast page, and then I can also send you the video as well. So if you want to pass it around to people or post it on your website, you can do that. But you can definitely refer people to our podcast page and they can see the video.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's tell us about Diane. Who is Diane?
Oh, golly. A wife, a mother, grandmother. Currently we have 11 grandchildren, my husband and I. Just don't get to see them enough. It's fabulous. Family's everything. Diane loves to travel. I love to hike. I like the outdoors.
That's a great place to be in Montana for that, huh?
It really is. Yeah.
That's great. And I did read through your bio, but for the benefit of the people who would be viewing this, we're going to assume that I know nothing about you, and I'll ask you some questions.
Absolutely.
But fascinating background, the stuff that actually got you kickstarted on writing. Tell us what inspired the writing. How did that come about?
I enjoyed making up stories when I was younger. I have dyslexia. I went all the way through school, had no idea what was wrong with me. None of my teachers ever caught on. It was actually in my senior year, I was working for a company called The Gamekeeper, and I became their assistant manager. And so I would close out at night and I would do the deposits. And when I would basically write down the numbers, I would transpose the numbers. And it was actually my boss who caught that I was transposing numbers, that I had done everything right. I had added everything correctly, but I would transpose the numbers. And so
how old were you at this point when this happened?
I was 18.
Okay.
Before anyone ever figured it out. I just thought I was slow. But I'm not slow because I managed coping skills and I figured out how to get around everything, and I still came out with A's and B's, but I'm dyslexic. Now, most people would say, well, a dyslexic can't be a writer, but there are famous people, Einstein, people that, through history have been dyslexic and very brainiac people. And I just used to think I was slow. It's not slow. It's just my brain sees things differently. And so when I would make up these stories in my head, I thought, oh, someday maybe I'll write them down. Maybe I'll make a storybook, or I would write a cute little kids book. And so I did take some classes on writing. And I got really high marks and told that I had a great imagination.
And
But
the dyslexia didn't cause any problem for that, for the writing on the classes? Not
mm,
really?
just extra editing.
Uh,
Just
okay.
extra editing. I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
a good editor.
yeah, okay.
Um, but I always dreamed that one day I would be a writer, but life tended to get in the way because I had a full-time career as a registered dental assistant. I worked in La Jolla for many years. And then when I met my husband, in 1998, um, and we married, I stopped working and I was raising the family and doing all the household chores while raising all these children. And, we had a combined family, of basically a his, mine, and ours.
Mm.
And so that kept me pretty busy. Then we moved and we had a little ranch and 5.5 acres, and that kept me busy because I started a daycare.
And
And
were you in Montana by this time or elsewhere?
we were in Sacramento.
In Sacramento, okay.
Yeah. A little place called Harold, California.
Okay.
Great little town. I think population at the time was 940 something people and a lot of animals. Um, but it was there just before I turned 50 that I wrote my first story, and that was Angelina's Secret. And I just
Which
sat
is
down
which is
one,
the first book in the Jeweled Dagger series, right?
correct. I
Oh.
sat down one day and I decided I was going to write a story just to see if I had the chops to do it. I
Mm,
mean, anyone can write a little children's book, but not everyone can write a novel. And I
mm,
thought, I'm going to write a novel. And the elements I wanted were uh, an intense love story, action, suspense, drama. And so I wanted to incorporate all that into one novel because normal love stories are just boring, at
mm.
least to me. I need
Yeah,
more than just a
yeah.
love story.
They're
It's
a
got
bit
to have
too, it can be
something.
linear. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be something more to keep me interested. And so I sat down to write a story that would entertain me. And when I finished, I had this incredible book that I sent over to my best friend Gigi that I've known since third grade. And if anyone's going to be honest with me, it would be her because
Mm,
she never pulls punches and she tells it how it is. And I love that about her, that she just would say, this is crap or, you know, whatever.
yeah, it's
And
better to know at the beginning, that's for sure.
that's right. And so basically, she read it in like 3 days. And then she calls me up and she says, it's incredible. I want more. Where's more? You got to write the next part of this story. And I said, well, I'm just wanted to know if I was good enough to even write this one. And she said, no, it's great. It's great. It's incredible. But you need to write more. And so I thought about that and I thought, she's got something. Maybe the story could continue. And so in the Jeweled Dagger series, each book is like 20 years later, and they're the children of the person in the book.
Right.
And so the family continues. And Isabella is Angelina's daughter, and Olivia's promise is Isabella's daughter. And so, I wanted these to be love stories, but I wanted them to have lots of action and suspense and
And it covers three
intrigue.
generations, basically.
Yes.
And in the first one, the first book, what's the title was what again?
Angelina's Secret.
Angelina's Secret. What's the time period in that? What period are we talking about in that book?
1763, I believe it was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then we're landing into the 19th century with the other two books
Yes.
eventually.
Yes.
Okay.
So, we have pirates and privateers and, all that sort of fun action I always loved pirates, so I thought I'd write a story about a pirate who's living a double life, and that's
Mm,
her. She has to keep his secret, and so it's just a fun love story.
that's great. They would sort of categorize as historical romance,
Yes,
or that would be the correct category. Eh?
yes, historical
Great.
romance. Yeah.
I read something in your bio that said, and forgive me if I'm overstepping here, but in the bio it said something about how the tragedy with your brother and then followed by your father kind of sparked you into a sort of a frame of mind where you decided you had to live life to the fullest.
Well, I when my brother died in January of 2011, that was a shock. I wasn't expecting it. In fact,
Mm,
I was living in Sacramento at the time and he was in San Diego, and he called and he was asking for me. He was sick. He was in the hospital, and for some reason he knew he wasn't going to make it. And so I got in my car and I drove after work all night long. And I got into San Diego probably around 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I slept a couple hours and then went to the hospital. And we had our conversation, he and I. At that time, he was coherent enough that he was talking.
mm,
The next day I came to the hospital and he was not really talking. He was sleeping mostly. And so I got 1 day with him, and he was my only brother, my only sibling. And I held his hand to the end, and it really tore me up. And then a few months later, my father called me and said he had cancer. And then he told me he had pancreatic cancer. And I know what that means. That's
mm.
death
Yeah,
sentence. Anyway,
it's over.
yeah, he passed a couple of months after that. And so they both passed in the year of 2011. And that threw me for a loop. And I'm one of those people that internalizes things, and I will try and figure out what was the purpose.
Mm,
And the only thing I could come up with, that life is short. Life is too short, and it can be taken away before you know it.
yeah, and snap. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I
But
decided
the reason I asked about these is, how did it affect your writing?
uh I think my writing is more honest
Mm,
than a lot of people, in the fact that I will put my whole self into the book. I will take these experiences that I've had in my life, the losses, and when you're writing a sad scene like Laura's story, there's some
mm.
really gut-wrenching scenes in Laura's story that I wrote from a place of honesty. And I can tell you there were days when I wrote 5 pages and I was wrung out because it was just raw and honest.
A
And I
little bit of
think,
projecting yourself into that
y-
story there, right?
yeah, I think I've had people tell me that it's really um, sad, some parts, and some
Mm,
parts are just joyous. I think that I write from a place of experience and understanding of the human condition because I've experienced it.
right.
And
So
I
kind of
bring
it
that into my
resonates.
writing.
The book resonates you and your experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, sad that they passed away, but kind of their legacy is like forwarded in the books in so many words, really.
Well, they gave me the ability to be honest enough to go after what I wanted, because I don't think without that, who knows if that had never happened to me, I may not have ever had that kick in the butt to actually do
Mm,
something really scary. And that
mm.
is put yourself out there.
It's a wake up call. It is a wake up call
Absolutely.
when you
Yeah.
lose somebody close like that. I noticed, I mean, I have read a couple of your books, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I forgot to announce myself at the beginning of the podcast, but my name is Rial LaPlane. I'm also an author, and I do reviews for the International Writers Inspiring Change. So your
Right.
books have crossed my desk. I read A Compromising Position.
Mhm.
That was about a year or two ago, or maybe it's a couple of years ago when you released that, right?
Right.
That was a jump from historical fiction into sort of a contemporary romance, drama, action. Uh, what caused you to skip ahead on that one?
That would be a contemporary romance, I think, with a little thriller in it.
Right,
I don't think I want to ever be put in a box.
right.
I just write what catches my imagination. Sometimes I have a dream about something and then I think, oh, that would make a good book. And so I go with it. My latest book that I'm releasing in May is called The Magician Killer. And it's
Wow.
about two FBI agents tracking a serial killer. And one of the agents has a history with this serial killer that she discovers while on his trail. So there you go. There's the little teaser.
Okay, that sounds really fascinating.
Yes.
Again, you like you said, you're not boxing yourself in with just one genre. You're like
Yeah.
expanding, pushing the edge. That's great. The
Yeah.
Magician Killer, right?
The
That one?
Magician Killer. Yes. And the setting is the Alaskan wilderness. So
Okay, lots of that sounds fascinating. I'm gonna have to read that book.
yeah,
Add
I
that
think
to my
I'll send it
list.
to you for a review.
Yeah, there you go. And then I noticed also, a little cheat sheet here as I look at you've also released one or two books on children's books.
I wrote my first children's book. It's called The Secret of One-Eyed Cogburn, the Dreaded Pirate Captain. And
Pirates again.
yes, I love pirates. Um, so I wrote this book years ago. It's one of my first books that I ever wrote. And I never found anyone that I wanted to illustrate it.
Mm,
The illustrations I had in my mind a certain fun illustrations, and I couldn't find someone who would actually do the illustrations by hand until I came across um, um, my friend, let's see, Nestor, Nestor Taylor.
okay,
And he did all the illustrations in this book by hand.
great
And
illustrations.
they're incredible. So I had to go all the way to find him. He was in Argentina. And I was talking to somebody who was a Disney illustrator, and we were trying to make a deal of, to do my book. He was actually a very famous illustrator. And when I described what I wanted, he goes, "Well, I don't do anything like that. My illustrations are a little more simple." And he goes, "But I do have a friend." And I says, "Well, I'd be happy to talk to him." And he says, "Well, he's all the way over on the other side of the world." And I said, "That's okay. I can work with that." And so basically, it took me 10 years to find this illustrator for my book. And so
Did you go
I
to Argentina?
no, I didn't go to Argentina. We did everything online.
Okay,
And yeah, and in fact, the designer of the book, um, Sergio Sandoval, did the setup, and Nestor did all the illustrations. It took him over a year, and I had input in all of it. He'd send me, things, and I'd say, well, make him grander, make him fatter, make him, this, and we discussed everything back and forth for all that time, and it was fabulous. In fact, in the back of the book, the two little caricatures, this is supposed to be me and that's supposed to be Nestor. And I said, wouldn't it be fun if we had caricatures on the back of the book? Just something cute, fun for the kids to see, just unexpected. And so he goes, that sounds like a good idea. And he did it. And he just sent it to me and I go, perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And so I'm getting ready to write another children's book. It's going to be continuation of these guys and their
Okay.
little adventure. And so, Nestor and I will be getting together again and doing another children's book. I'm
Yeah, that's
very
great.
excited about that.
How's the reception been to the book?
It's been great. I have gone to several schools around here and read to the students. And I tell you, those kids are just amazing. They're just sweet. I had one little girl sit down beside me and she was looking up at the book and she goes, could you just sign that for me and give it to me? She says, I just love it. I just love that book. And so I just think that the children are so honest and they're going to tell you whether they like something or not. And it's just been fabulous, the reception.
I mean, that's the great thing about kids. They don't have the social margins that
Mm-mm.
adults have. There's no social veneer. It's just straight up like, I like it, I
It
don't
really
like it.
is. That's right. That's
You
right.
know, great
So,
audience to deal with.
yeah.
I haven't read that book, but
It's won 3 awards, just so you know. Three
already,
awards
holy wow.
already.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just put it out last year.
Well, then I guess I'll have to add that to the list again. All right, so we covered that. So the magician. What was the upcoming book title again?
The Magician Killer.
The Magician Killer. I'm just going to note that here. Good. All right. And are you writing full time? Are you doing this part time? Are you still working or?
I don't work, but I do have an elderly mother who is suffering from dementia. And so I
Okay.
take care of her full time.
Okay.
And I do write as much as I can. In fact, I'm working on another novel right now. It might be short, so I might put two short novels together and make it a book. I'm not sure. I haven't decided, but it'll be it'll be lots of adventure, lots of twists and
All right.
turns. It's just every chapter ends on a cliffhanger. Da da
Would
da.
would you say is it safe to assume that you're so passionate about writing that you think about it a lot or all the time, or you even when you're going to bed, do you make notes, things like that? Do you wake up in the middle?
Ah, I have waken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and come downstairs and start writing. Yeah, I think about it a lot.
Yeah,
It's a passion. I mean, I love it. I
yeah.
love writing. Sometimes I'll watch a movie and I'm like, I have an idea. I have an idea and I have to write it down. And so I will make notes to myself all the time. I've got a box full of just notes of things that one character could say to the other character, and it's just, yeah, all the time.
I think I can safely say, having interviewed lots of authors or spoken with them, that kind of passion is shared by uh, authors who want to write because they want to write, and not necessarily just because they're necessarily trying to make money or something like. But the ones who are really passionate, that's what their life is like. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning coming down, or like you say, a box of notes or notepads all over. And
Everywhere.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
my husband doesn't get it because it's not really a money maker. And if you're going to do this to get rich, you shouldn't do it.
No,
You don't make a lot of money. I mean, if
no,
I make a couple of dollars off of a paperback book, I mean, I'm lucky because
yeah.
there's not a lot of money in it and people don't understand that. But it's just one of those things that I'm passionate about. I've always been passionate about it. Um, it's unfortunate that I was driven away from that when I was younger,
Mm.
because it's basically what I wanted to do. It's what I've always wanted to do. But I think when you have a passion for something, it will come out eventually, even if you take a different road. Somehow it comes
It
back
always goes back
around.
to that. Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Yes, it just comes back
No,
around.
I totally agree with you. And I think that, you know, on the next question I'm going to ask you, this point about I have an idea what you're going to say. Like, if you were going to advise, let's say, a novice or new guy, somebody who's breaking into the field of writing, what would be the advice you'd give them about writing?
I would say write your best book. If you have to make your bills, you might want a second job. Uh, keep your second job, write that book on the side.
Wow.
Uh, unless you're like a J.K. Rowling's where it just blows up and it's amazing.
Mm,
Um, but always go after your dream. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't let people naysay you unless you have these critics that are saying you are a terrible writer. Don't ever write again. Um, just go for your dreams because life is too short.
yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned, the passion, I think, has to be the thing that drives
Right.
the writing, because it has to be like I think you mentioned it when you said with the first book you wrote in the Jeweled Dagger series, you wrote a story that you wanted to read.
Exactly. I didn't
And
know if anyone else would want to read it, but I knew I wanted to read it.
yeah, and I think that's actually a critical point, and also that I've found out in talking to other authors and myself, when I write a book, I'm not writing the book. I'm not thinking about the reader. I'm thinking about, does this book interest me? Am I going with this? Is this like, do I want to read the next page? If I don't, then I know I sort of derailed somewhere along the way.
Right.
You know,
Um, I have, it's been years since I've written Angelina's Secret. And every once in a while, I'll open up the pages and I'll start reading something from there and I'll go, man, that is genius. So smart. Who wrote this? Not to blow my own horn, but I'm thinking, wow, those words actually came from me.
it's
And
amazing.
yeah, sometimes there's insights in those, and I'm like, oh, I must have been feeling pretty, philosophical that day because I really put some really good zingers in there. Uh, I think sometimes, that voice inside of us, we don't realize that it's there and that it needs to come out and that there's somebody
Yeah,
else that maybe needs to hear it. Um, until you actually put pen to paper
yeah.
and you actually put it out there for all the
Yeah.
world to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes it timeless. You go back 20 years to read that book again, or however long it was, and it has that authenticity because it's resonating from you. It's 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 authentic. It's like you said, it's
It's
honest.
real. It's
It's
real
very
stuff.
real.
It's
Yeah.
real life. So,
It's not just a fiction, but
yeah, I had somebody ask me, do I put myself as the character? And I think when I'm writing these characters, I'm writing the person that I'd like to be, that brave, that honest, that, person that is just brave in the face of danger.
right.
That is the person that you write your best self. And it may not always be you, and it may not always be, you know, that character, but, you know, putting flaws, characters all have flaws. A good character, I should say.
Mm.
A good character always has flaws. And isn't that like real life? We all have flaws. We're not perfect. We put our best face on for the world and we show the world what we want them to see, but we all have flaws regardless.
I think that speaks back to the point about making a character that people can identify with, because the people reading the books, well, they're not perfect people either. You know, they know that they have flaws, and if they can identify with the character and go, oh, he does, he's like
Yeah.
me, you know, but also he's somebody I would aspire to be like you say, courageous, intrepid, you know.
Exactly.
So I think, again, what you're saying sort of resonates with a lot of the authors I interview. It's just making real characters that people can talk to in their head. You know, they go, yeah, I like that guy. That's me.
Right.
Or that
Exactly.
person or that girl. So anyhow, that's great advice that you just gave us. So, you know, other authors will be watching the podcast at some point, and so they'll we always get comments back about this where people go, wow, yeah, I really what she said in that podcast really resonated with me as a writer. So I agree with that, you know. And then I actually had one writer who wrote in after a podcast and said, I was losing faith in my writing until I saw this podcast that you did with one of the authors, and now I'm sort of revitalized. I'm going to go back into writing again. So
Yeah. You know,
you know,
I do have my slumps, just like any other writer. There are
uh,
times that I just don't have that juices going that to write. And so I do not push it. I
mm,
do other things. I put it aside. Sometimes I get stuck on on a manuscript, and I'm writing the manuscript and I don't know where to go from there. I mean, there are times I can just take a hot shower or a hot soak and it'll come to me.
mm,
There are other times when it takes a week and, I'm pondering that problem of how to get the character out of this situation and where we're going to go from there. Um, they call that a writer's block, whatever. But writer's block is not something that's debilitating. It's just something you have to work through and allow your subconscious to relax
yeah, exactly. And
and
so
just go.
eventually it comes together.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, you know, um, I remember when I was teaching a writing class once, and somebody asked me, well, what would be the key point if you were going to tell us, you know, my advice to them? And it would be like, uh, always have your goal in mind. Always stay with the goal. Where do you want to go with this book, with this story? Where's it heading? If you stay latched to that goal, any writer's block or hurdles you encounter along the way will eventually be overcome. You just
Right.
don't lose sight of, like you said, don't lose sight of the passion. It's kind of the same concept.
Exactly.
Well, you're the first author we've interviewed from Montana, so it's been great talking to you.
Thank
And
you.
you know, you have some new stuff coming out, so we look forward to reviewing it at iWick.
I think I will send you a copy.
Oh,
I will
we will
send
look
you
forward to reading.
an early copy so that you can just give me your opinion.
The Magician's Killer, right? You're talking
The
about
Magician Killer.
The Magician Killer. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that one. Diane, it's been great talking to you. Really,
You
really
too.
great.
You
And
too.
I'll post this up on our website or send it over to the iWick guys, and they'll put it up on the site. And then if you want a copy, they'll send you a notice, an email, and if you want a copy of this, we'll send you the video as well.
That would be great. I'll give it to my team and they'll put up on our sites.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Riel.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was a great interview.
Thank you.
I'm glad, Rial was a gentleman.